Greetings, friends. I am Vitaly Portnikov. The world is hurtling at incredible speed toward a new major war in the Middle East, which could significantly alter the entire international situation and create new risks for a global conflict. Risks that have only begun to increase since Donald Trump became the new president of the United States. Today, Trump himself is convening a meeting with the top military leadership of the United States. The State Department has already confirmed the evacuation of the American embassy in Iraq. Diplomatic missions of the United States in other Middle Eastern countries are also being partially evacuated. Serious security measures are currently being implemented at American bases in the Middle East region. So what is really happening? The negotiation process between the United States and Iran has predictably reached a dead end. Donald Trump himself, who has repeatedly spoken about the incredible results of this process, including incidentally during his negotiations with Putin, now only repeats that something happened to the Iranians. Nothing unexpected has happened with the Iranians. From the very first day of negotiations with Washington, they had no intention of agreeing to Donald Trump's terms, which would have ruled out the possibility of Iran enriching uranium for the potential development of nuclear weapons. All the more so because Iran has come dangerously close to acquiring this capability, as was acknowledged today in Congress by U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. Thus, all the efforts of Trump's special envoy at the negotiations, Steve Witkoff, well as in all other areas for which this close friend of the American president was responsible, ended in failure. And now the question arises as to how Iran can be stopped on its path toward acquiring nuclear weapons. In obvious desperation and in an attempt to achieve at least something, Trump turned to Russian President Putin for help. The last phone conversation between Trump and Putin, by the way, was not at all devoted to finding ways out of the Russian-Ukrainian war. In fact, I got the impression at the time that Trump was not particularly interested in Russia's war against Ukraine during that last conversation. He was only hoping that Putin would be willing to act as a mediator in the American-Iranian dialogue. That didn't happen either. Firstly, because Putin does not have the necessary influence over Iran's leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. And secondly, because he is not interested in being a mediator, he is interested in something entirely different, a major war in the Middle East, in which, from the Kremlin's perspective, Trump's United States should become entangled, and in Russia gaining a free hand in the post-Soviet space and in Europe to further increase pressure on Ukraine and possibly on other countries of the post-Soviet space and the European continent as well. Thus, we have reached a point where Israel, in its attempt to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons, will be ready to strike the nuclear facilities of the Islamic Republic. This is despite the fact that it is not entirely clear whether Israel has a precise understanding of which specific facilities could be targeted. And by the way, what results this will lead to from the perspective that Russia, for example, could help Iran restore its nuclear cycle literally within a few months after any bombing. In turn, Iran has already emphasized that if it is attacked by Israel, it will strike American facilities in the Middle East, because it will consider the United States to be, in fact, directly responsible for the attack. Donald Trump, obviously, does not want a war with Iran and is trying to restrain Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from giving a harsh response. However, the American president does not have enough influence over the head of the Israeli government to be decisive when Netanyahu makes a decision about striking Iran, and thus Israel's decision to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons in a situation where the United States clearly cannot reach an agreement could trigger a chain reaction. Israel strikes Iran. Iran strikes American targets in the Middle East as well as Israel itself. The United States then has to decide whether it is prepared to launch its own attack on Iran. And if it refrains from such an attack, it will practically lose its reputation as a global leader. And if they are ready to attack Iran, as we understand, they could find themselves in conflict with countries that are allies of the Islamic Republic, namely the Russian Federation and the People's Republic of China. And here you have a sketch of World War III, which Donald Trump fears so much, and in which he could obviously become a participant as a result of his incompetence and lack of understanding of the level of challenges he would have to face after returning to the White House. All of this is, in fact, a very dangerous and precarious situation, also because it can objectively serve to distract the world's attention away from the ongoing Russian-Ukrainian war. Furthermore, it can also create new and potentially deeper dividing lines among allies in the West, because the United States and Europe may respond to possible strikes on Iran and the subsequent developments that could follow after these strikes, if they occur with different nuances and approaches. And as we now understand, this could also become quite a serious problem for consolidating support to help Ukraine in the coming years of the Russian-Ukrainian war. In any case, a major war in the Middle East, and this could indeed be a major war, with strikes on many cities and the deaths of not only many military personnel, but also civilians in numerous countries across the region, could divert attention from the Russian-Ukrainian war, just as it did after October 7, 2023, when Hamas, a terrorist group, attacked Israel. Moreover, the scale of what we are about to witness and possibly even take part in, if this turns into a world war, will be far more serious and desperate than anything we have seen in the first 2 decades of the 21st century. As I have said many times before, these war-torn 20s are only just beginning. And the appearance of Donald Trump in the Oval Office has truly sounded the war bell. Thank you, friends. Stay tuned to this channel and subscribe to it. Subscribe to my social media, to my channels on Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, and Donatello, which helps support the development of this channel. Make use of the sponsorship features right here on YouTube. Victory and peace. Good luck.